the Roxom Report London. The big, beautiful bill has made it to Trump's desk. We'll discuss what that means for Bitcoiners. Secret whales are quietly liquidating their Bitcoin and putting it in the hands of institutional investors. The euro outpaced Bitcoin in June. We'll find out what that means for the larger market. And a Bitcoin mining slump due to the summer heat. All that, plus Susie Violet Ward from Bitcoin Policy UK is joining us to discuss today's top stories. That's all coming up right now on the Roxom Report London. Hello and welcome to the Roxom Report. I'm your host, Ione Butler, coming to you live from London every weekday to give you our takes on the latest and greatest Bitcoin news. Today's guest is the fabulous Susie Violet Ward. Susie, how are you today?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
I love having you as a regular. Thank you for coming back week after week.
Yeah.
So always like to kick off with a little discussion about what's new in your world. You went to an interesting event yesterday. Would you mind sharing a bit about it?
I did. Bitcoin treasuries are the new big thing.
They are indeed. We're hearing about it all the time.
All the time. So there was an event about Bitcoin treasuries by Peterhouse Capital in Fenchurch Street yesterday. So after the show, I went down to take a look, and they had some really interesting discussions. I was very concerned that it was all going to be about basically just accumulating as much Bitcoin as you can, which was mentioned. I mean, Andrew from SWC did say that Smarter Web Company have a want to own 1% of all the Bitcoin, a little bit like Strategy. That makes me feel uncomfortable. I really don't feel like I want companies to be holding that much, but it's a free country and they can do whatever they want, obviously, and if they can accumulate that. The issue that I have is that it's through stock dilution. Okay. So, or leverage, or debt. So they issue more stocks to raise the capital to then buy the Bitcoin. A little bit like a money glitchy type thing with yes and no. I mean, they're basically swapping soft money for hard money, and one could argue that that is using the fiat system and everything that's broken as an exit valve. That's one argument. Another could say that it's diluting your shareholders, and it's no better than money printing, which is exactly what we blame the government for. Right. Personally, I think that if you have spare capital or spare cash in a company, a lot of companies do have treasury companies where they have to put their cash somewhere, and I think that's when you should buy Bitcoin. And I think that is the perfect time to buy Bitcoin. Get rid of your treasury department, get rid of all your treasury systems. You don't need all of that nonsense. Just use your spare cash and buy Bitcoin, in my opinion. Obviously not financial advice.
Isn't the opposite? Isn't that what MicroStrategy have done to raise the huge amounts of money that they've had? Was it selling stocks?
They've more used debt.
Okay, and do you think that's a better way of doing it? Or?
It's a way. It will probably work. It's debt at very low interest rates. It is a kind of money glitch that Saylor has identified and highlighted to Wall Street. I don't know how I feel about it really. It doesn't give me a warm fuzzy feeling. It's not the ethos that Bitcoin is for me. It's not necessarily separating money and state. It's not acting like a freedom money. It's not making governments smaller and more efficient. It's the hyper Bitcoinization of Bitcoin. It's an inevitable part of Bitcoin. I understand that it has to be part of the financial system in this way. It's an inevitability. Yeah. But that doesn't mean I like it.
No, agreed. That has been something that's been concerning. Just, I think it's 3% that MicroStrategy have, and this person speaking at the event wanting.
I don't think they have 3. Can you check that? I think they have
Anton,
1%.
Do you mind quickly checking? I thought it was 3. Like the objective to have 1%. It's then you've just got with such a scarce supply, then you've just got, again, the very few holding everything. And then that, to me, is just a continuation of, I get that makes me concerned about the future of Bitcoin. How do you feel about it?
Because people would say, but it doesn't.
2.5?
2.5%?
Yeah.
Oh my God, you're
of
right.
all the Bitcoin that will ever be mined.
Oh
It's
my
a
God,
huge amount. Yeah.
I thought it was 1%.
Yeah.
Oh no. Yeah. So
It's a concern, right?
yes, it's a concentration of wealth. He'll probably be the first trillionaire sailor. It doesn't give you more. It doesn't affect the system. It doesn't affect the protocol. It doesn't affect the network. It is a huge concentration of wealth.
Yeah. Something that's going to be part of the debate as Bitcoin gets adopted.
But it's a free market.
Yeah.
And if he can do it, and he's doing it, and he's taking the risk, and the other side is, then he can absolutely do that.
Yeah. What else? What other takeaways did you get from the event yesterday? Anything else that stood out for you?
Yeah, so I was quite pleased because rather than just pushing ETFs and these investment vehicles, that a lot of people were saying that it's important to also hold your own and self-custody. So I was very pleased with that. A chap called Eddie said that he thinks investors should also invest in Bitcoin, that it's important for everybody to own Bitcoin, and the two are not exactly the same. So he made that distinction clear, which was very, very pleasing. Everybody was at different stages of their Bitcoin journey, I guess. They're capital allocators, their businesses. Like I said, it's not necessarily the ethos that I would want to apply to Bitcoin, but at the same time, I recognise it as a necessary part of it integrating itself into the system.
Yeah.
So I'm accepting of it.
Yeah.
But
I'm not sure that you love it.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back with our top of the block news story.
Security matters. Zappo Bank, the only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
Welcome back, everyone. Let's dive in with the biggest Bitcoin story making waves today. This is Top of the Block.
Okay.
Donald Trump is preparing to sign what he's calling a big beautiful bill after the House of Representatives passed his major tax and spending plan. The bill was approved by a narrow vote, 218 to 214, after Trump put pressure on Republican lawmakers to fall in line. He's expected to sign it into law later today, just in time to meet his own deadline. The new law extends the large tax cuts Trump introduced during his first term. To help pay for them, it includes deep cuts to Medicaid, America's private health insurance, public health insurance for people with low incomes or disabilities, and other social programs. It also reduces tax breaks for clean energy projects, which were introduced under President Biden. Instead, the bill boosts funding for the military and Trump's strict immigration policies. Economists warn it could increase the national debt by more than $3 trillion. Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries called the bill ugly and spoke against it for nearly 9 hours in protest. This marks another major win for Trump. In the past month, he's ramped up immigration enforcement, ordered military action abroad, and seen a Supreme Court ruling that expands his executive powers. Now, yesterday we briefly touched on this topic, and I wanted to clarify the difference between the federal deficit and the debt ceiling. So the federal deficit is the annual gap when the government spends more than it brings in. It is that gap, or difference in money, which is what gets added to the national debt over time. By contrast, the debt ceiling isn't about spending, it's the legal limit set by Congress on how much the Treasury is allowed to borrow to pay for already approved expenditures. That borrowing cap was suspended from June 3rd, 2023 until July 1st, 2025 under the Fiscal Responsibilities Act, signed by President Biden. A temporary halt to the cap, allowing the Treasury to borrow without a ceiling. When the suspension expired on January 2nd, 2025, the limit reset automatically at about $36.1 trillion, the exact debt level then outstanding. Since then, the Treasury has been relying on extraordinary measures, accounting maneuvers like halting certain investments to avoid default while Congress decides what to do next. So now on to the One Big Beautiful Bill. This sweeping tax and spending package was passed yesterday. It makes permanent the 2017 Trump-era tax cuts, introduces new deductions for tips, overtime, business and estate taxes, and locks in roughly $4 to $4.5 trillion in tax relief. At the same time, it cuts funding for Medicaid, SNAP, student loans, clean energy incentives, and adds work requirements, so changes that hit low-income Americans hardest. Despite savings argued by lawmakers, $1.6 to $1.7 trillion in mandatory reductions, the nonpartisan independent analysts project this bill will add about $3.3 to $3.9 trillion to the federal deficit over the next decade. The impact will be front-loaded, pushing the deficit well above current law projections and fueling a longer-term debt surge. In short, the debt ceiling has returned at roughly $36.1 trillion, now managed by stopgap accounting tools. Meanwhile, the One Big Beautiful Bill delivers sweeping tax breaks and social program reforms, which independent scoring estimates will drive the federal deficit upward by trillions over the next 10 years. Okay, so that kind of, hopefully that clarifies it. What are your thoughts on the One Big Beautiful Bill, and how do you think this might impact the price of Bitcoin moving forward? I mean, I guess the big concern is potential increasing the debt by trillions.
So that, do you know what you said that really made me laugh?
Right.
The guy spoke against it for 9 hours in protest.
I know, such a long time, such a strange, but they do that a lot. I think somebody did it for 24 hours, like last month. Yeah, there was, and I don't really understand how that. Where do you eat? How do you go to the toilet? Are you just standing there? But yeah, somebody did it for 24 hours.
I don't
or 3
think
days.
even I could do
Anton,
that.
do you know what senator that was or what representative that was that did that? They spoke for like 24 hours. Cory Booker.
I would love to
It's
be
called
able
a
to...
filibuster, apparently.
Is it?
Yeah.
Brilliant. I want to do a 9-hour talking protest on something.
Yeah. 25 hours and 5 minutes. What was it against? Oh, it was, yeah, probably an earlier reading. It was against this. The bill, yeah. But yeah, it's a long time.
Yeah, and like you say, like, would you go to lunch? Do you
I
have
know.
breaks?
How does one? Yeah, I'll be right back. Just like, take a 10-minute nap, come back and talk to protest.
I've ranted for an hour. I need another 5-minute break.
It must be exhausting, honestly.
Yeah.
But yes.
So how? Yeah, adding to the deficit. Yes, it's going to explode. I think I've mentioned before we're in a debt spiral.
It's going to explode. The price of
debt. Well, it will explode the price of Bitcoin because it's going to weaken the dollar.
Yes.
So as it weakens the dollar, the Bitcoin is the flight to safety. This isn't just going to go up because of fiscal mismanagement and just spending more money. It's also going to go up because the M2 money supply is increasing as well. So
could you break that down a little bit, the M2 money supply?
So as more money comes into the system, it just dilutes everything. And so as talking about the price of Bitcoin, so you know, as the dollar, as these currencies get weaker, the price of Bitcoin will become that life raft that people need to jump to, so the price will go up.
Yeah.
So there's lots of reasons why this is going to affect the Bitcoin price.
Yeah. What do you think of the bill?
I don't really know about it in detail.
It's very, I think it's many thousands of pages,
Yeah.
so I would be very surprised if they'd done a deep dive.
I mean, it doesn't, the fact that it's going to increase...
It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah,
it doesn't seem like the smart move.
If it's going to increase the deficit by 3 to 4 trillion, and I understand that tax cuts for the wealthy can be seen as a good thing because that's a good economic driver. I'm not opposed to that necessarily if I think that you can prove that it's going to drive more growth later on. But when governments offer fiscal control while accelerating spending, it just reinforces the need for a decentralized, non-inflationary currency, in my opinion.
Yeah. I find it quite contradictory. You know, there was such a big push throughout his campaign about cutting spending and things like that. And then, you know, the deficit is a big problem. We're going to cut the deficit. And you've had all these federal employees and cuts made to government, only to sort of take away further cuts from taxes. And so it just feels like, what was the point in all of that? It's not really what the promise was. I think it's disappointing for people who had maybe got behind it for that reason, because it's not really delivering on what he said he would do.
So I think that 77% is the tipping point for the debt to global GDP when you are in a debt spiral. This it's going to go up. It will not come down.
Anton, do you mind telling us what the current debt to GDP is
For the
percentage in the US right now? Because that would be interesting.
Yeah, I think it might be around 100%. So we're
100%?
Yeah.
So that means it's definitely in a debt spiral then, does it?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we are. And the UK are too. But they don't talk about that. They pretend that it's all fixable. It's not fixable. The only way that they can get out of this debt is to debase the currency, which will happen because they're just basically putting more money into the system naturally.
This is interesting because we 124% in the US.
Oh, God.
It passed 100% a while ago. That's even more terrifying.
Wow, yeah.
Because we were talking about this last week, and I think I was getting a little bit confused because we were talking about the UK and the cuts that Starmer was trying to make, and you were saying that it's tuppence in comparison to what the debt that the country has. And I had said, so what do they do? And I think you were saying debase the currency, which is what they are actually doing. But I guess what I'm asking is there another solution that is not debasing the currency? How do countries get out of these severe debt crises that's not debasing the currency? Any thoughts?
I don't think they can.
You think that's it? Yeah.
I think that's the only way. In an ideal world, you'd want growth and successful businesses and for people to be successful. But that we're not going in that direction.
No, I know. In fact, it seems like it's going in the opposite direction with businesses being. It seems to. I just find it so difficult for anybody to want to have businesses here. I'm like, why would you?
They're leaving the UK.
Why would you do it? Yeah.
They're not. They're we know of businesses daily that are leaving the UK because they can't operate here.
Yeah, yeah. Oof, it's tough. Okay. All right, let's keep moving, shall we? I'm not going to cut to a commercial break. We can do this. Are we ready to head to the Market Watch? Okay, we're going to dive straight into the Market Watch, and we're just going to look at how Bitcoin has been moving in the past 24 hours. Check out the stinger. So over the past 24 hours, the price of Bitcoin has shown slight fluctuations, but remained close to the $109,000 mark. It slipped slightly to around $109,132, but stayed near its monthly peak of about $110,100. The price change in this period was minimal, with a small decline of approximately 0.07% to 0.63%, depending on the source, indicating a relatively stable but cautious market. Bitcoin has experienced some short-term bullish signals with the potential support near 107,000 and resistance around 113,600 to 116,500, suggesting possible upward movement if these levels hold. However, a drop below about 103,400 could trigger a more significant decline towards 85,600. Trading volume remains high, with 24-hour volumes reported between $30 billion and $47 billion, reflecting active market participation. Overall, Bitcoin is maintaining a strong position at $108,867, with mixed but generally stable price action in the last day. Okay, next up, it's time for your daily breakdown of the headlines, diving into the world of finance, tech, and digital assets. This is the Global Gist. Welcome back to the Global Gist. First up. Okay, Senator Cynthia Lummis is pushing forward with a new bill aimed at easing tax rules for crypto users after her proposals were left out of President Trump's recent budget package. The Wyoming Republican, who leads the crypto subcommittee in the Senate Banking Committee, introduced the bill on Thursday. It targets several long-standing tax concerns from people who buy, sell, or earn digital assets like Bitcoin and Ethereum. One major change would be a $300 threshold for everyday crypto transactions. That means users wouldn't need to report capital gains, essentially profits made from selling or spending crypto, on small transactions under that amount. The total cap would be $5,000 per year. The bill would also stop what's known as double taxation for people who earn crypto through staking, mining, airdrops, or forks. Right now, these rewards can be taxed twice, once when received and again when sold. Under Lummis's plan, they'd only be taxed when eventually sold for cash or another asset. It also includes tax rules for crypto lending, charitable donations, and wash sales, a type of transaction often used to offset gains or losses. Traders could also choose to value their assets at current market prices when doing their taxes. Lummis said the goal is to let Americans take part in the digital economy without risking accidental tax violations. Still, the bill faces an uphill climb. Time is tight in the Senate, and other crypto-related bills, especially those that focus on setting government rules for digital assets and stablecoins, are taking priority. Lummis has also been advocating for a federal Bitcoin reserve, but her immediate focus is meeting a deadline. She's agreed to help deliver a major crypto market regulation bill to President Trump's desk by the end of September, in line with the target set by Senate Banking Chair Tim Scott. Okay, Susie, tell me your thoughts on Senator Lummis and these bills. Is it a win for Bitcoin?
Yeah, I think it's good. I mean, she isn't splitting out Bitcoin and crypto, but she is a Bitcoiner. They're lumping it all into crypto.
And you're not a fan of that?
No. My first thought was, why would you treat Bitcoin, which is a commodity, and crypto, which is a security, and muddy the waters? And then I thought to myself, well, they're probably not going to make any gains on the crypto anyway, because it's all smoke and mirrors and nonsense. So it could be a complete nonsense point anyway. Airdrops and all that nonsense. I mean, we talked with Stefania about that last week, and it's just buzzwords that are meaningless. So I wish they would just focus on Bitcoin. And Senator Lummis very much is a Bitcoiner. She has just been given this title of crypto person, which I suppose I should embrace, because she's there fighting the good fight under that banner. Yeah. So that's a good thing.
Why do you
double
think
taxation's bad?
Yeah, it does seem a bit unfair. Why do you think it's potentially like lobbying from different crypto companies?
Yeah.
That is why there hasn't been more of a conversation about just Bitcoin in the US?
Yeah, because there's no CEO for Bitcoin, and a lot of these companies have a lot of money behind them. I mean, they can literally print their own money. They can issue their own tokens. They can write, they can flood the media with marketing campaigns, convince people to buy them. Pump and dump schemes are a real thing. Yeah. Take the money, put that into marketing, and then just drive their own agenda. Bitcoin can't do that.
Right. What do you think of some similar type of policy here in the UK? Well, I guess it was so far removed from that, right? Because
well, yeah,
you can't even buy and sell, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first thing we would really like to do is get them to differentiate the difference between Bitcoin and crypto. I mean, that would be huge. And retail can't even access ETFs. I mean, you were talking to PT yesterday about ETNs. It's a step in the right direction, but really they need to make it easier for retail to put spot Bitcoin ETFs into their SIPs and their ISAs. rather than forcing them to invest in proxies.
Yeah. Have you met Cynthia Lummis at any of the events? Have you seen any talking?
I've seen her on stage,
Yeah.
but I haven't met her in person.
Okay. Yeah. And what's the vibe you get from her?
I think people love what she's doing. She's a really powerful advocate. She understands what she's talking about, and she's advocating for all the right things.
Is there somebody in the UK government that you see as, like, is there anyone in government that could be the UK's Cynthia Lummis?
It's tricky because we were making progress with the Conservative Party towards the tail end, and then Labour came into power, and then you have to start all over again. Had the Conservative Party stayed in, I would say there are a handful of people that maybe would have been advocates in that a similar kind of way. But Labour coming in...
So far there's not really anybody.
No one, no. And you can tell by the responses that you get from our open letters that they are definitely not as far forward in terms of thinking and understanding that the Conservative Party are.
So you're just not getting, is it from the responses that you're getting back from them, or just like shut door?
Yeah, and they very much dismiss it. So Emma Reynolds, the economic secretary, she said at the Financial Times Digital Asset Summit, when she was asked about whether or not Bitcoin should be part of a national reserve, she just said, "Oh, it's not for us."
Yeah, like no kind of full explanation of why. It's just very...
Yeah, it's really weird. The thing is, if you don't understand something, then that's absolutely fine.
Yeah, but don't rule it out.
Don't rule it out and
investigating.
research it.
Yeah. It's so unfortunate. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with more Global Gist stories.
Security matters. Zappo Bank. The only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
There's been a major power shift in the world of Bitcoin. Large anonymous whales have sold off more than 500,000 Bitcoin over the past year. That's over $50 billion at today's prices. These whales include early adopters like miners, offshore funds, and long-time private wallets. Many are cashing out or trading their Bitcoin for deals tied to the stock market. Some are even moving their assets behind the scenes, bypassing public exchanges. At the same time, big institutions are stepping in. Exchange-traded funds, corporate treasuries, and asset managers have been buying at nearly the same pace. Together, they now control about a quarter of all Bitcoin in circulation, almost 5 million coins. This transfer of ownership is changing how Bitcoin behaves. Price swings have dropped to their lowest in 2 years, and the currency has been stuck near its record high of 110,000 for months, despite growing political support and strong demand. Some experts say Bitcoin is starting to look less like a high-risk bet and more like a long-term investment. Growth expectations are now closer to 10 or 20% a year rather than the wild gains of the past. But not everyone sees this as good news. Critics warn that institutions might just be providing the exit ramp for whales, leaving retail and retirement investors exposed if the market turns. Still, many analysts believe this shift could go on for years. Bitcoin may be entering a new phase, less excitement, less drama, but more stability. If that holds, Bitcoin's wild days could be behind it. But if whale selling picks up again without new buyers, history shows prices could fall, and fast. Susie, whales are selling and institutional investors are buying. How do you think this might impact the price of Bitcoin?
So we've talked about long-term holders,
Yeah.
and how they are just selling just over the 100k mark, which is kind of
that. I think the exact thing yesterday.
yeah, and you can see that this is happening. Who's buying? We discussed it yesterday. Peace said public companies was closer to 40%. These aren't the figures that I've got. The figures that I've got of who are buying are ETFs are 40%, exchanges around 4.5, DeFi about 7, public companies about 25, private companies about 8.5, and governments are at about 15%.
So the retail investors, sorry, would they fit into the exchanges?
Well,
Because that's a tiny percent.
and ETFs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yes, it's moving from it's becoming a little bit more centralized, a bit more institutionalized. It was always going to be, it was always going to be like that.
Did you think that it would always go this way?
I think it has to. It has to be part of the current financial system. And people that are using it as a freedom money are still using it as a freedom money. So it can still be used like that. I'm not so concerned. It's a shame though, because it doesn't function in the way that Bitcoin should.
I want to ask this. So say, for example, you've got these institutions gobbling it all up, if you will. And then you've got regular people just trying to use it as the currency and have it be the thing. If you've got people hoarding it and holding on to it, and other people trying to spend it and use it as a currency, and it's a limited supply, does there come a point where there's none to spend if people are holding it?
Yeah, so that's when you'll get a shortage of supply and ultimately probably get a supply crunch. They were talking about, has the volatility died down? Will things become more normal? Is this time different? I think is what they're...
I definitely think it is.
I think it could be, but saying that is almost a joke. Like, is this time different? No, it's never different. But I don't know, with the amount that institutions and public companies are buying, and with how little there is available on the OTC desks, I think this time could be different. Would we not see an 80% drawdown like we've had in the past? I think we could still. Do you know what? It's impossible to say.
But yeah, what do you think though if you've got institutions hoarding, say, I don't know, 70% of it, and you've got people still wanting, can it exist as a currency where people buy and sell things with Bitcoin if you've got certain people just hoarding this limited resource?
It can.
Okay.
It's not how I would want to see it, but it's not about me. Bitcoin is anti-fragile, and it needs to be able to survive everything that's thrown at it, including situations like this where institutions are buying and holding it. If Bitcoin can't survive the institutionalization of it, and it can't survive all of these things happening, then it almost doesn't deserve to survive. It's not anti-fragile enough. So these are the tests that we're going to have to see.
Yeah. I guess just for me, practically getting my head around it, if there's people who are holding it, I mean, I guess it's saying stop spending Bitcoin on everyday things. You'd hold it, right? If we've got companies and governments that are actively trying to take all of it as much as possible, by you going out to try to use it as a currency, you're doing yourself a disservice because, it's being then sort of hoarded by other people.
Yeah. There are so many people that do think that if you spend it, you're silly, that you should spend your fiat because that's the rubbish money essentially, and hold your Bitcoin because that's the good sound money. But I think that we need to, I like spending Bitcoin. I like using it when I can. I like paying people back in Bitcoin if I can. We were just in Prague, and whenever we'd take a taxi and someone paid for it, I'd try where I could to just pay them back in sats, and it was just fun, just doing it and using it. Like I pay my beautician.
That's cool.
In Bitcoin, and she puts it into self custody and
Did
looks
you
after it.
get her into that?
She was, we'll call it an altcoiner.
Okay.
Just to be impolite to start with. She had a massive Ripple holding.
Okay.
And a lot of others. Bitcoin was her smallest position.
Oh no, why?
I think because at the time that maybe she got into crypto, it was around 21 and everything was pumping. You couldn't lose. Whatever you bought, you felt like a genius. Yeah. And then when it all crashed again, people thought that altcoin season isn't coming back. I don't think, just so you know, like I don't think that those will ever see those gains again. I've said so many times, everything is bleeding into Bitcoin. And so those people that it went up, it came down, they're hoping for that rise again. And I just don't think it's ever going to come. You have to get your fingers burnt. Once you understand that, you then become Bitcoin only. And I think through going through that process and talking to me and me explaining the difference between Bitcoin and crypto. Because remember, you got an hour with someone, haven't you?
Yeah, there's a lot of time to get into the
She's
weeds
one of the
with
few
it.
people that was actually interested in what I had to say. Like, usually people are like, oh no, please don't talk about it. If you're going to talk about Bitcoin, like,
Well, if she'd already been stung, then she probably is definitely very receptive to understanding.
And I'd send her like illustrations. So I would say, if I don't get my eyelashes done anymore, but like I would say to her, if I get my eyelashes done this many times and I pay you this amount, and if Bitcoin goes to this price at the end of the year with this, it will be this to that. And I would send her lots of different illustrations and to make her understand. And then when she said that she'd got it into self-custody, it was really great actually understanding the normal pitfalls that people will make, because to you and I, certain things that we do are obvious, but to someone who's just starting out, so for example, I would send her Bitcoin, which was KYC free via the Lightning Network. For some reason, she decided that she wanted to transfer it onto an exchange before she then transferred it to her her device. Yeah, I was like, why? You've now just doxed yourself, and you completely didn't have to. Like, you could have. But these are the things that people don't think about, and it's not a criticism. It's actually really useful to understand.
I would say, in her defence and in everyone's defence, it's such a different way of doing things.
It is,
and so it does require a learning curve. And if you don't have somebody to sort of sit you down and talk you through it, it is really hard to get started for a lot of people, and to do it, the correct way.
Yes, and she was ahead of the game as well. So, like I say, not a criticism. It's actually really useful for me
so
to understand
people's
thinking
blocks. Yeah.
And so the next thing that she did, which I was horrified by, but once again, for me, it's understanding how people that are new to this, how they're thinking and feeling, and how they're putting the current system into this new system. And she said that she wrote her seed phrase on a piece of paper, and it was in her drawer next to her bed.
Wow. Okay.
And I'm like, okay, so that's fine, because what you've got is only a couple of £100, but what if all of a sudden that Bitcoin became worth £500,000? Then how would you treat that piece of paper? Would you have it on paper? Would it be next to your bedside? Have you thought about how you're going to pass that on to your kids? And so then when I sent her the seed stamper thing where she had to put it in metal, for me, I'm like, this is obvious. Like, this is what you got to do. And for her, she's just like, well, that's overkill. And I'm...
I mean, the argument that you made, like, £200 doesn't look very much, but if and when this becomes 500,000, are you going to be happy with that? Like that, it's a very valid, compelling argument to be like, take it a little bit more seriously.
Yeah, because
be a bit more careful. Yeah, because you'll regret it,
Well, if she loses that, or the paper gets destroyed, or one of her kids rips it in half, or one of her kids takes it out of her drawer, draws a picture on the back, and then it gets lost, anything. And then when she moved home, the first thing that I asked her, literally, where is your seed phrase?
This is fantastic. We all need a Susie to...
Did the move go okay? Are you happy? Are you settled? None of that.
Where's your seed phrase? It's not the best example of like self-custody and responsibility, but that I think is part of what the education needs to be about for people to really benefit from it. Yeah,
and that's why it's really good learning from a completely non-judgmental point of view. What is it in someone's thinking? Why did she not go from her KYC-free wallet into a KYC-free cold storage device?
And when the system that they have in Texas, and how do they do that? They increase the prices when there's more demand to sort of dissuade people from using more power?
No, I think that the pricing is directly with the miners and different purchasing agreements, which I wouldn't be privy to. I don't know exactly how they work those out.
Got it. All right, well, that brings us to the end of our show. It's another fantastic episode with our guest, Susie Violet Ward. Thank you, as ever, for joining us. Remind us again where people can find you on socials.
You can find me on Twitter. Just look up DecentraSuze.
DecentraSuze. That's it for this week of the Roxom Report. Happy 4th to all of our American viewers. We'll be back on Monday at 1 p.m. Take care. Bye.